The rumors are true. Meg 2, The Trench, directed by Ben Wheatley, who is not John Turteltaub, is the meggiest movie about Megs ever made. Now, I've got a soft spot for terrible shark-related B-movies, so the Meg franchise is really after my heart. Talking two-headed shark attack, three-headed shark attack. It's like if one of those movies cost $100 million instead of $100. Meg 2 is in a very interesting position. Technically, this movie scales upward from the first movie, but it feels much cheaper. It's not much cheaper than the first film in terms of its actual budget, but the vibes start coming closer to those straight-to-VOD shark movies than even the first movie. So maybe an acquired taste. In describing the major differences between the first and second films, I've got 3 words for you. The Trench. From what I've gathered, the novels these films are based on take the concept a bit more seriously, and they seem closer to being fully fledged horror stories than these movies are. From my deeply involved, intense 3 minutes of Wikipedia research, I've deduced that Steve Alten's The Trench is the only of the many Meg sequels to not have the word Meg in it, and thusly de-emphasizes the Meg of it all. It's more about the trench itself. Duh. And all the funky critters the author could come up with. They were still Megs, but it's about the critters. The film adaptation doesn't have the balls to throw out the words Meg and 2, so you can feel the script fighting to include Megs whenever it can to justify the title being Meg 2. The first movie did have a relatively brief section where it dips into PG-13 underwater horror subgenre territory, but full disclosure, that's like half the movie here. There's even a fully submerged mining base for them to run around in. I've seen some people complain about the slow dredge this movie kinda slams into once they go underwater. This film starts out with a Statham action sequence right out of Expendables, and then it becomes that 2020 film underwater for like an hour. I will admit that this movie feels like it was at least 2 hours and 20 minutes long, but apparently it's like 3 minutes longer than the first one. But you know what? I love movies like this. God bless the 2020 film Underwater. The fact that movies of this structure continue to get made despite the cost to returns ratios on these things astonishes and amazes me. I once found myself reading an unproduced spec script online. Don't really remember how I got there, but it was a bottom of the ocean monster in a box movie, and it was a pretty fun story, but also sounded so expensive. Is it any wonder these undersea base monster stories don't get made so often anymore? Truly a dying breed. We don't even really get monster in a box movies set in space that often anymore, and when we do, the director has to huff a bunch of glue and talk in interviews about how it's actually a noir film. Meg 2, though, actually made more than its production budget in the opening weekend, so we'll see. Actually, we'll see how it goes throughout August. We could be talking Meg 3, Meg trilogy of Megs. Jason Statham, Paige Kennedy, Sophia Kai, and Cliff Curtis are the only returning characters from the first movie, and they all sort of dial up the cheese in appropriate fashion. Joining them are 10 boring guys I promise you are not physically capable of remembering after they die. You know how it goes. I imagine where they found some of that giant octopus VFX budget was in cast. The first movie would fill out its ensemble with recognizable faces just to kinda stand around and maybe get a death sequence. Ruby Rose, Masioka, Bing Bing Lee, Dwight. There's less of that here. Something about the VFX, which there's got to be more of here, also seems cheaper than the first one. It's kinda easier to see where the effect starts and ends, especially with scenes with creatures on land. This might not be correct, but these shots with these critters on the ground feel like there was a little on-set reference. You can easily picture the plate without them there. They don't really blend in quite so well with the shot. They kind of feel pasted over in a way. Also, if I were a betting man, this movie seems 80 yard to hell and back. There are so many off-screen lines either to over-explain something or add more jokes, and they all just barely fit with the timing of the scenes. This movie also has the weirdest dare needle drop ever. It's just the instrumental, if I'm remembering correctly, and this doesn't really affect the movie negatively or positively, but I felt like I had to bring that up. I understand that this particular flavor of genre movie is not for everyone, and that it could have been better in execution, but damn it, I had fun, and I hope we keep on trying with movies like this. The day we stop making big dumb sea monster movies is the day this world finds itself wholly dead to me. I will turn my back on all nations and all peoples. Anyway, Meg 2 The Trench is like a solid 5 out of 9. P.S. I wish nobody had told me about wet maps, because now I see them everywhere. Somewhere beyond the sea, somewhere waiting for me, Barracuda.